Welcome! Today we are in the kitchen where Angie is teaching me her tradition of making fresh blueberry scones so that I can serve them in our new coffee shop. We are also experimenting with gluten-free flour as well as learning how to make some French press coffee. Hello!
Hi! Here we are again.
Yes, welcome to beautiful Salvage. Today we have a different kind of video for you. We are filming how to make scones. Angie's going to be teaching me how to make scones because we are opening a coffee shop and we'll be making your scone recipe in the coffee shop. So she needs to teach me so that I can do it when she's gone, and we'll teach you as we go along too. So
it's just that I have a hard time giving up my recipe because I know how much Derek loves my scones.
yes, my husband loves
and I'm
scones.
the favorite baker at this point, but I won't be anymore.
Oh, so I get to be the new favorite probably. Yeah.
Gotta pass on to a new generation.
Well, maybe we'll call them Angie's scones, so you still get some credit.
They'll still love me.
Well, tell me about how you start off making your scones.
Well, I like to use flour, which I know that Amy's not going to use flour today. She's going to use gluten-free. But I do generally use flour and real butter. And we're going to make blueberry scones today. And we will be putting buttermilk in them because I like to use buttermilk instead of cream. Because it just gives it a different flavor and it makes it a little fluffier.
Okay.
So
Okay. And we'll see how it turns out. I'm a little bit gluten sensitive. I'm not allergic to gluten, which is completely different, but I'm a little gluten sensitive. So we are testing the waters out on this recipe to see if it turns out with gluten-free
I
flour.
could test my almond flour disaster.
Sure.
Oh, I thought I would test out using almond flour for Amy. And it was flat as a pancake. And it tasted good because Dave ate the whole works, but it was just not a scone. So we're not using almond flour today. We're using gluten-free.
Okay, and maybe there's a recipe with almond flour. It's just yours happened.
I think you have to use egg, and it's a little bit different recipe altogether. So
okay, so today we're using it's a rice flour blend. Let me get it real quick. It is gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour, Bob's Red Mill, and maybe some of you have used this before, but it's a blend of sweet white rice flour, whole grain brown rice flour, potato starch, whole grain, I don't know how you say that, sorghum flour, tapioca, and xanthan gum. So that's what we're trying today. It's our first time, and then we'll probably end up, after making the gluten-free, we'll make the regular.
Yeah, because the scone recipe really has to be put in the freezer in the refrigerator for at least an hour before you bake it, because you want your butter to be super cold, because that gives it the texture. So,
all right,
we'll take and swap out there.
And you have some special pans or something here.
Yeah, I brought my collection. They're metal, and I have one that's round, and then you put your scones in here. And what's really nice about individualizing them is that it bakes it, and so it keeps the shape, and it makes a little bit brown around the edges, so I really like that. This is another one that makes like 12, and that gives you the shapes too. And you just cut your scones up and you put them into the pan, the size. And then this one is probably my favorite because it's cast iron, and it's seasoning here with some oil on it. But that really bakes them nicely. And there was a maple scone that I did one time that was just amazing.
Ooh, that sounds yummy.
It had some carrot in it, I think, too. So.
Ooh.
But that, I don't know if we can use it in a commercial kitchen or not, so
we'll have to find out. That. Yeah.
But when I see a scone pan, I buy it.
And so I've seen scones made without scone pans too, where
you can just cut them
and put them in
the oven. Thing I don't like about them is when you cut them, you have to move them on your board. And that can distort the shape. So they're not always the same shape then, whereas here, they'll stay the same shape.
And I suppose they get a little toasty around the edges, maybe
Yeah,
being
they
cooked
don't.
in
They
the pan?
do better in the pan.
Okay.
Like toasting around the edges, so then you don't lose your moisture from the inside. Because with scones, they can be real dry.
All right. Well, let's get started.
Okay, we're gonna start off with 3 cups of the gluten-free flour. It doesn't have to be sifted or anything, but you're gonna want to put all your dry ingredients first. So there's 3 cups of that. Add to that baking powder. It's 2.5 teaspoons. Then you also use baking soda, which is like 1 teaspoon. And then the recipe calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, but because I've got salt in my butter, I don't use unsalted butter. I use regular butter. I just use a little less salt.
Oh, the sugar! You can't forget the sugar.
I was trying to sabotage yours.
No sugar for me.
I put it in there now, though. That's okay because we're not having liquid in there. Your butter, of course, it comes. I get real butter, and then I usually have it. It can be frozen. It's actually better frozen, but you use a 3/4 of a cup of butter. Now I'm going to mix this up. Use a spoon here, just to kind of distribute stuff around so that you don't have it all in one spot. You could sift it as well if you wanted to, but I don't. Unless I have lumpy flour or something, then I might, but. Okay, so that's stirred up. And then this is gonna be a cup or 3/4 of a cup, so that's 1.5 of the butter sticks.
A trick to making a good textured scone is making sure that your butter is very cold. A good scone relies on little chunks of butter in its mixture. During the baking process, the butter melts, creating little air pockets. These air pockets give scones the texture they are known for.
Okay, so the butter's all in here, and I'm just gonna use this little pastry cutter. I'm gonna cut it up in there. You're gonna wanna still leave pretty good sized chunks in there, but you wanna make sure that it isn't over mixed when you have your liquid in there, because that's going to make your scone tough.
You said you used
I use a food processor.
Okay.
To me that's much easier because you just do a couple pulses and you make it all mixes up really quick. It's just that sometimes you can go overboard and get that butter too warm. So
okay.
That's up to you how you like it. I'll probably use the food processor because I'm used to doing it that way.
Yeah, well, I think for making big batches for
It
a
just makes
coffee
sense.
shop, it makes sense for the time's sake. But so tell me about, so when the butter's frozen or really cold, it must go into the oven and then melt and create air pockets.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's
Just like you would have with puff pastry, kind of, where you see them make the puff pastry and they make it cold and they freeze it again. It's kind of the same concept. When I was down in, I think it was Atlanta, there was a chef that made scones down there when I went down for a meeting, and I actually caught him on the way out and I said, I loved your scones, what do you do? So he told me, basically you make sure they're very cold.
Okay.
Before you bake them.
So is this mixture is not going in the freezer? You have to add your liquid first.
We'll
and then
add
it will, okay.
But when it's all done and ready to go, we're gonna flatten it out there.
Okay.
And then we will freeze it.
Okay.
And then you can keep it in the freezer for a long time if you want to, or you can just put it in the refrigerator and then bake it later. But you just want that butter to get cold.
So like a long time, meaning like I could put these in the freezer and keep them for like a week or so and pull a couple out and cook them when I'm
going to grate a little lemon peel. And you don't want to get the white pith in there, but the lemon with the blueberries is really good. So
obviously you washed the lemon.
Yes, I washed the lemon before we even got started. And you can put that right in there with everything else. Probably should have got 2 lemons for 2 different things, but I do have actual dried lemon peel too that I brought with, but the real stuff is much better.
Fresh is always better.
Yeah. As long as you wash it.
It looks like probably maybe a teaspoon.
Yeah, a teaspoon. And if you really, really, really like lemon, put more. But we're going to take lemon juice when we make our little sweet frosting on it. So that'll give us a lot of lemon.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is where you want to do very little mixing. You add a cup of buttermilk. Just a couple times lightly mix it around. You don't want it to, like you would do with a mixer or anything, if you want it to basically still be dry. You can see how that's coming together. Okay, I'm not going to mix it much more than that because right now I'm going to get the blueberries in there. And they're in one piece. So you're just going to lightly mix that with your fingers. And we're going to dump this out onto the parchment paper here. Whoops, escapee. And see, it looks like it should be mixed more, but you don't really need it to be.
Once the ingredients are all put together, making a dry dough, Angie makes a pie-shaped dough formation, wraps it in parchment paper, and places it in the freezer for at least an hour. So now it's my turn.
You're gonna sabotage mine.
Okay, so we have 3 cups of flour. So now we're making the regular, so it has gluten in it. But so it's regular all-purpose flour, three cups of that. I'm gonna put that in there. Let's see if I can remember how it goes. Okay, so then, don't forget
the sugar.
Don't forget the sugar.
I'm gonna remind her because she's making my recipe.
We should maybe look up some history of scones and see, like, obviously they probably originated from over in Europe somewhere.
Well, I think England has just always been my idea of scones, and they put the clotted cream and all the sort of stuff on their jams. And things.
We'll have to do some research, and that'd be kind of interesting. Okay, so sugar, then we have baking powder.
Now, that was soda.
Baking soda.
That was a teaspoon.
And this is baking powder?
Yes.
Okay.
2.5 teaspoons.
Okay. We have all this measured out ahead of time. And then our salt, and you only use a 1/2 teaspoon because we're using salted butter. If you were to use unsalted butter, maybe
then you use the whole
3/4 of a teaspoon.
It's harder to manage the salt content if you use salted butter. That's the reason why a lot of people like it.
And then I'm gonna mix this up a little bit ahead of time. And then after I kind of mix this up, then I cut in my butter, which Angie so thoughtfully cut for me ahead of time. And then we'll cut it in with a pastry cutter.
Actually, I think if I was doing a bunch of this, I would put this back in the refrigerator and cut up like that.
Yeah, then it'd be colder. Yeah, so maybe ahead of time you would, cut this all up and then put it in the freezer. Maybe even
smaller pieces. So it's just nice and cold.
So we put that in there, and then
I'll give you a clean one.
We use a pastry cutter, and then the lemon goes in. Lemon and blueberries go in after, or
yeah, you can put them in after. Okay. If you put those blueberries in there now, honey, those things would be squashed.
The scones would be blue.
I've had blue scones before. There's nothing wrong with them. They taste really good, but if you squish those berries. And sometimes if you have frozen berries, they're more likely to give off their juices as they warm up. So I'll dust them with flour, like put them in a baggie and put flour around them so that they have a wall between them and the biscuit dough.
Oh, that makes sense.
So then that keeps it from getting blue. See a little round?
It's almost like probably a little less than pea-sized.
Yep, and that's...
So is that what we want?
Yep.
So maybe I'll my hands are clean, but I'll show this up at the camera of what this looks like. So yeah, here's a chunk of little butter, and it's almost pea-sized, maybe a little less. So that's that smell good? Like, I don't need to mix anymore? Okay.
You don't want to get carried away because that takes away
I
from
think
it.
I could definitely see someone getting carried away because you feel like you need to mix it, you know.
Yeah, and I think some of your
cake batter.
processed stuff is mixed a lot more.
Now I add my buttermilk, and this is 1 cup of buttermilk.
This is where you really don't want to mix it too much, because that's when you put that moisture in there, then you start using gluten gets.
Oh, so yeah, you don't want to activate the gluten.
Yeah, you don't like when you do bread, you stretch it and move it. You don't want to do that with a scone.
So I wonder if the gluten free might turn out.
We'll see. Maybe that's why it was
Better.
a little drier.
Yeah.
We are going to have a taste test.
So I just kind of maybe want to cut it more or less,
You don't
cut
wanna
it
get it
in
too-
and not necessarily
And
mix
you could
it.
be putting the berries in there now. I
Okay.
think. And then,
And my lemon zest.
yep. Fast learner here.
Okay, so while the oven is preheating, Angie sprayed the pans with just spray oil.
Yeah, I don't flour them because you're going to have enough flour from the scones. So just a little Pam or whatever spray stuff. So.
If you have been with us this far, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you along on our journey of starting a coffee shop and boutique. So once we have them in the pan, we're gonna brush them with buttermilk.
Yep. I'll just kind of lay it out here if you want to take a brush. And, depending on what you want to do, you can put some cinnamon and sugar on there. But we're going to frost these with like royal icing when we're done, so we don't need it. But a lot of times, like when I do the cranberry ones, I just mix cinnamon and sugar together and then sprinkle that on top. Okay, Amy's being brave. She's going to put those scones in the oven.
All right.
400 degrees or plus if you need a hot.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Right, and then we'll set the timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes. We'll probably check it at about 15. Cup and a half of, maybe more like a cup of powdered sugar.
Okay, and we're making the frosting to go.
The frosting to go on the top.
Okay.
We're going to use lemon juice and then just pour that in there. We want it to taste kind of lemony.
So add a little at a time, because from my experience, if you add too much,
then it gets real runny.
Yeah, so I would probably just add a teaspoon at a time.
Sometimes you can just use whipping cream or milk if you want to do this.
Add a little bit of water.
Yep.
Is that good, or do you want more?
I think it's going to need more. Look at how the berries have popped. Is that yummy?
Those look so good.
We're going to take them out and then we're just going to cool them in the pan for a while and they'll do some residual heat. And they'll cook a little bit more. Let's see how these other ones are doing.
Okay, so while our scones are cooking and cooling, I'm going to show Angie how to make French pressed coffee, and I'm new to French pressed coffee.
And I'm old. So new to old.
New to old, so you haven't done it. Maybe
I've never done it
your
myself.
daughter's done it before, but
Oh, my daughter, she was a barista for a while.
So I tried doing this yesterday for the first time, and it turned out pretty good. I would say I maybe need a higher quality coffee than I need to search for. So, but I'm just familiarizing myself with different ways of making coffee since we're venturing out to have a coffee shop. There's a couple different ways that I've seen people use a French press. I've seen them where they put their coffee in and they fill it halfway, give it a little stir, and then finish filling. But for simplicity and for just learning, we're gonna do it the simplest way that we can. So what I've seen or read, they usually use 2 tablespoons of ground coffee, 2 to 3 tablespoons of ground coffee per 8 ounces of water. So this is about 20 ounces, so we're using 5-ish tablespoons of coffee. And we're just gonna pour our coffee in here. And if you're grinding your own coffee, which I suggest, because that's gonna give you the freshest coffee. It's a little coarse, but not too coarse. So we're pouring our coffee in there, coffee grounds. And then
that's a lot of coffee.
It is. It does seem like a lot. And this will form like a crust and it will float to the top and you'll see that. This is our boiling water. And we're just gonna pour that over the coffee.
How far do I go?
I keep going probably till about here.
Really, that far up? Huh?
Yep. Oh, there's our scones.
Well, I'm gonna go check the scones now, and you do the pressure to the top.
Okay. We have our poured water in here, and our coffee grounds are sitting on top, and that forms what they call a crust. And we'll just leave that, and that also acts as a filter. So all of the small sediment from the coffee is sinking to the bottom right now. And as you press this crust down, after about 5 minutes of steeping, that crust also acts as an extra filter for all of the sediment that's down there. So the sediment doesn't come into our cup of coffee. And on a French press, if you're not familiar, it has a filter. And this is what we're pressing down over that crust. So we'll leave this sit for about 5 minutes. So our coffee is steeping. We'll leave that sit, and then while that's sitting, we're going to frost our scones. How are we going to know if yours tastes better or mine tastes better?
First one's going to be better.
Well, how would you know if you haven't tasted mine?
All right, then I'll taste yours.
Well, you gotta taste yours first. All right. Bon appetit.
I don't know.
That's good. Okay.
I don't want to trade.
Well, mine's pretty good too.
Okay.
So that was the gluten free.
Oh, you probably shouldn't eat that.
Well, I can have one bite. I think mine's better. Give me mine back.
I want mine back.
They're really good.
Yeah, I think.
You think you like yours better?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like mine better. Well, there you go. Okay,
I'm
so
prejudiced.
I'm gonna try my coffee.
Oh, I want to try that too.
Okay.
It tastes better with coffee. Ooh, la la.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Delicious. So our scones are done.
Oh man, let's do this again.
It was so good. They're so good. So good. And we were afraid that they might be a little dry, but they were not at all. And so I would definitely do this again. And the gluten-free flour turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
I even think it's better than regular.
Yeah, but I think the regular is better. But I'm not used to gluten-free either, so you know.
Yeah.
It passes.
Definitely.
Just fine.
For
And
sure.
I would eat them. No problem.
And so the guys are on the construction site right now, and they are working on our new coffee shop and boutique. So we are going to take them a sample of each scone, and maybe they'll vote of what their favorite is. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because we're gonna have both. So
it wasn't a fail at all.
No, it was fantastic.
And the only thing is, we think we put a little bit more buttermilk. You still use the 3 cups of flour in the gluten-free, but just add a little bit more buttermilk.
Yes, and I think if you don't have the pans like we did, and you were rolling them out and cutting them out and putting them on a cookie sheet, I would probably use
Less
half a cup of less flour than our recipe calls for. Our recipe will be in the description below. So if you want to venture to make your own, I recommend it. They're amazing. So
yeah, I can't wait till Derek sees and tells me which one he prefers.
oh yeah, okay.
Those blueberries, so being the fresh blueberries, I mean, they popped in the oven and they were just like juicy coming out. They didn't change the color of the scone itself, but you just had that pop of juice.
Yeah, and then we garnished ours with a little bit of fresh lemon, which was amazing. So if you have fresh lemon to garnish with afterwards, I would do that.
Yeah, because it just gave you a little bit more zing.
Yeah. All right, so we have our scones ready for the guys on the job site. And thank you so much for watching. We hope you had a fun time. We hope you are inspired to maybe make some scones, or, you know, this is a little bit different.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
If you know the tricks.
So this will be fun to have in our coffee shop.
Yep, we're looking forward to it.
Well, thank you for watching and have a beautiful day. Bye. Are they a little bit warm?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. If you want to revise it just a little bit and then come back, we'll try it again.